Hello and welcome to the Ken Talks Film Podcast, episode number 13. Where are the previous 12, you're wondering? Well, this is the relaunch of my former show, Friends Talk Film. Reason being is I don't have any friends anymore. Well, I've had to relaunch the show because life got in the way. My former show, Friends Talk Film, which launched back earlier in June, was doing really well. However, it got through to the summer and friends started having holidays, myself included, and we just found it really difficult to get together on a weekly basis. So I kept putting off doing a new show, and I started getting really itchy feet and was like, I want to get back on this again. I want to do this podcast. But I couldn't very well do my podcast with a show called Friends Talk Film if I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I've rebranded the show, Ken Talks Film. I've updated all my social media networks and contacts, and I'll be going solo. That's not to say that I won't be having my friends as guest appearances in the coming weeks, but the idea is to bring the show to something a little bit smaller, so manageable rather than the hour and a half we were talking previously, bring you the latest movie news, trailers and reviews of things that I've seen and my personal opinions on it. And when I get my friends involved, they will be. On those special edition shows, we will have sort of like the film flashback, the Channel Flick Challenge, and some of those things we did together as a group. But the show must go on. So we're going to start off now by bringing you this week's movie news. Okay, so first up this week, we are talking Tomb Raider. So this is the reboot from the previous franchise, which involved Angelina Jolie. We've known for a while that Alicia Vikander will be exploring the ruins and caves as the new Lara Croft. The details of the story have been very quiet so far, but we've had some casting announcement for the antagonist of the movie, and it's going to be Walter Goggins. We don't know exactly how his character fits into the story. The only things we kind of do know about the story from the script is the film's going to be about Lara trying to clear her father's name. Now, Goggins' casting doesn't, like I say, mention how he's going to be involved in the story, but he's carved out some solid roles in the last few years. On TV, he's been in the likes of The Shield, Justified, and Vice Principals, and also in the movies. He's been in some Tarantino films such as Django Unchained and The Hateful Eight. So a really solid actor, does have that villainous look about him, so we'll see what he can bring to the role. I'm excited for this reboot because if you've ever played the rebooted games where they've redone the franchise on the games, there's some stunning games, stunning set pieces and action sequences. If they can replicate that in the movie, which we've talked on some of our previous podcasts, we should be in for a good show. And the casting, I think, is spot on. Alicia Vikander was brilliant in The Danish Girl, which she won the Oscar for, Best Supporting Actress. So some real credentials to the role, and we'll see what she can bring to it. Moving on, next we have a Little Shop of Horrors. So Greg Berlanti, he's not had the best of luck when it comes to the big screen efforts. He wrote the Green Lantern movie and directed Life as We Know It. Both weren't received very well. But he's had a lot more success in TV, especially with DC superhero films such as The Flash, which is a fantastic show, and Arrow, which had a real lull in seasons 3 and 4, but the latest season's been, much, much better, and the show's getting kind of back on track. But he's giving cinema another shot, with Warner Brothers hiring him to direct the Little Shop of Horrors remake. Now, the musical version of the story is the one that's most well known to people. This was brought to the stage originally by Alan McKinnon and Howard Ashman, which was later developed into the 1986 movie by Frank Oz. Now, Little Shop of Horrors, Little Shop actually springs from Roger Corman's 1960 original about the florist assistant Seymour, who cultivates a plant that turns out to have a taste for human flesh. He names it Audrey 2 after the woman he is in love with, and Seymour has to try and keep this crazy plant fed in order for it to not turn on himself. So the invention of lying... The Invention of Lying is Matthew Robinson is writing the script for the new movie, which will feature once again tunes, although it's not reported if the latest take will mention whether it'll be the original darker stage ending and the 1960s ending as opposed to the reshot version for the 1986 release. Now, So for the 1986 Frank Oz film, at the time, this had a huge budget. This had a $25 million budget. And at the time was Warner Brothers' biggest film to date in terms of budget. If you compare that to Aliens, which would be shooting at Pinewood, that had an $18 million budget. However, they spent $5 million on the ending of this movie. And the original ending was the Audrey 2 went on sale across stores over the US, and people went out crazy buying them, filling their shopping carts, and they all turned out to be these big monsters eating flesh. And you have this like War of the Worlds kind of thing going on. So they're destroying cities, eating people, just causing carnage. And the end of the movie and the stage show is Audrey 2 coming out of the screen into the audience, like is attacking them. And he eats Seymour and Audrey 1, the girlfriend. Now, they played this to test audiences, and it got a really, really bad reception. So they basically scrapped the last 23 minutes of the film and reshot it over 3 weeks. They even got an additional cameo from Jim Belushi in that time as well. And so it is available to see now on the director's cut of Little Shop of Horrors as well. So it's definitely worth checking out if you've never seen it, as opposed to the original one where Seymour emerges from the rubble, adjusts his glasses, picks Audrey up, and they're off into the sunset with that final shot of the little plant on the windowsill. Now, Mark Platt is on board as producer, and he's been trying to get this off the ground since about 2012, but it looks like definitely things are sort of more in motion now. I'm expecting probably maybe a 2018 release on this. Next up, we have Ocean's 8. Now, if you're not familiar with Ocean's 8, this is the spin-off from the original Ocean's 11, 12, 13 franchise with George Clooney and Brad Pitt. This is pretty much an all-female cast. It includes Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, and Anne Hathaway. Now we know that Damian Lewis will bring his particular talents to the film, playing the target of the robbery, so in essence the bad guy. Now, if Damian Lewis you'll know from Homeland and the show Billions, which was on recently, where he plays an entrepreneur. He definitely has that villainous side to him as well. You can really see that, how much of a bad guy and how much of a nasty guy he's going to be compared to how they tried to play Andy Garcia in the first one, who was just not so much a villain but just not a nice guy. And we liked Danny more, so we kind of rooted for him. So the idea is that Damian Lewis is going to be playing Andrew Bullock's former lover. So Andrew Bullock is going to be playing that Danny role, the one George Clooney kind of leading the team. He's been spotted on set, so it's not just a cameo, but there is also featuring Matt Damon, who's reportedly briefly reprising his role from the Ocean's 11 film with his character Linus Caldwell. So there definitely in the same universe, and the idea is that potentially Sandra Bullock's character is actually the cousin or a relation to Danny in the first one, so it all ties it in together. American Noise is set to see this film on the 8th of June 2018. No release date for the UK yet, but with the talent of Helena Bonham, Rihanna, Mindy Kaling, Sarah Paulson, it's potentially going to be a big film. As long as it doesn't get the hate and the backlash that an all-female Ghostbusters reboot got, which is just a terrible movie, nothing to do with the casting. This movie has some potential, and bringing in Matt Damon and Damian Lewis, bringing it into that universe where it's all connected, it could be quite interesting, and potentially another continuation of another franchise. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have 5 Against a Bullet, which is a property owned by Sony. They've been trying to get this off the ground for some time now. It's now gone into the casting stage, and the first person on board is Jackie Chan. Now, it's come about by Transformers producer Lorenzo Di Ventura, who brought the project to the studio like 5 years ago with a script written by Alex Litvak, who did Predators. It's the story of a Mexican politician whose father is killed by a drug cartel, and he is now launching a campaign probably to be mayor or president or something like that. And during that campaign, he needs to make sure he stays alive. So he hires a group of bodyguards, 5 against a bullet. And obviously one of these now is going to be Jackie Chan. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of casting, whether they're able to get that kind of caliber martial artist and actor to fulfill the other 4 roles of that bodyguard team, whether they can get like a Tony Jaa or something like that. It'll be really interesting to see. Or a Donnie Yen. Oh, that'd be amazing. This was broken by Variety. It doesn't offer any other updates on a release date, but it is being rewritten and directed by Carnahan, who is also attached to direct Bad Boys 3. So, like I say, no release date yet, but Jackie Chan can next be seen in Lego and Ninjago movie, who's doing a voiceover work for, and he's also in The Foreigner. He's currently filming a film in China, I believe, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can check out him on Twitter to see the picture of him and Schwarzenegger on set. Right, and so those are the main movie news for this week, and now let's talk trailers. There's been several trailers which have dropped in the last week or so. Some really cute ones. So I'm going to go through some of the key trailers which I've watched over last weekend, so you know what I think we can expect from the movie. The first one is where the only place that we can start is SpiderMan Homecoming. Now, the trailer dropped a few days ago. There's two versions if you haven't seen it. There is a sort of like a US version and international version. So the one version focuses very much on Peter Parker and sort of the Breakfast Club vibe they're going for. So it's him going through his troubles in high school, socially with girls and stuff like that. The second trailer focuses very much more on the Spider-Man superhero element of the movie. So, you know, to get a real flavor of the film, you definitely need to watch both. I woke up on that morning and did a trailer reaction video. Yeah, so I'm going to post my trailer reaction video down in the corner here now. You'll be seeing my face. It was very early in the morning. Couldn't get my contacts in, glasses on. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the tone. I think Tom Holland is spot on as Spider-Man. It's perfect age. And he's definitely got the characteristics where you can rely on him as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. I don't think in any of the other versions of this superhero we've seen on movie screen, they've got that balance right. I didn't mind Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I wasn't a fan of him as Peter Parker. He was almost too cool, not awkward enough, not science geeky enough and stuff like that. Tobey Maguire was just too old at the time to be playing that high school Peter Parker. So really gonna be seeing Spider-Man now in the elements that he was originally in the comics in high school for a number of years. They have talked about referencing Harry Potter in a sense of potentially each movie is going to be a school year moving forward. So whether he's a freshman in this year, like, first and then moving up to senior, but the next few films, you won't see him age that much because the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't progress as quickly in terms of years as an individual solo film is. And now because it's very connected, it has to kind of stay in that timeline. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming 2, in effect, I doubt it's going to be called Homecoming, that has already been confirmed for a 2019 release as well. So there's big things happening for this movie. It's the first time that we got to see the villain, the Vulture, Michael Keaton, who looks great. In the international trailer, you see him a little bit more in the bird costume without the helmet, with the fur around the neck. I think, he's such a fantastic actor. And he's really going to bring something to this franchise. And I hope that they will just do justice to a villain, because Marvel historically haven't been that great with their villains on screen, killing them off or just being quite weak. But if you look at the two different trailers, he seems to be very much getting a gang together. You also get to see a glimpse of Shocker. You see the tech in one of the screens where he's punching the bus. That's actually the Shocker using the tech against Spider-Man. Now, some of the things in terms of what I can tell about what's happening with the film, it's definitely surrounding the time of Civil War. Now, if you saw the teaser to the trailer, which features the first person of Peter Parker, and before he puts on the suit and jumps off the Washington Monument, that with Happy linked to obviously Iron Man, is I believe set during Civil War. So I think the first part of this movie is going to be set before then, and then Civil War's happened and all moving to the later stages. So I believe that is after the meeting that we see in Civil War, Peter Parker meeting with Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, and he's talking about giving him an upgrade. Now, I believe that scene there is when you see the movie and him looking down at himself, he's in his costume that Tony showed him on his computer, where he's wearing the hoodie and the glasses. Now, then he goes to the suit and it's like, oh, it's an upgrade from Tony. That is a suit that he wears in Civil War, I believe. Then you see in the trailer that him sitting in the car with Tony. That is very much a wrap up after Civil War, saying, right, this is what you kind of need to do, I understand, but just don't go crazy. And I believe what happens then, obviously the Vulture comes around. Peter wants to help and stop him, but Tony's like, you know what? Leave this for the big guys. This is too much for you right now to be dealing by yourself. And I believe that potentially Tony may take the suit away from Parker. Now, what gives me the reason for this is there is a clip in the international trailer where you see Parker sort of face down in the sand looking up, there's fire around him, and he's wearing his old costume. Now, you will also see the Vulture in the next scene in that kind of same environment. So my thought is potentially Tony's like, look, you're too young for this, you can't be dealing with it, I'm taking this tech away so you don't have it. He's like, I'm going to prove myself. This is the chance. Maybe that's the line from the trailer. This is the time it gives me a chance to prove myself. He then goes and puts his old costume back on to fight the Vulture, and we presume beats him. And then Tony will probably re-upgrade him again at the end of the movie. So I think that's obviously in terms of how the villain's going to play out. But something we didn't see in the trailer is the Tinkerer, who has been confirmed in the movie. I think that will have a lot to do with the tech that we see. So in the opening scene, you see the guys breaking into the bank ATM to get the cash out, big laser machines, and obviously shockers, stuff he has on his arm with the power. I think that's very much going to be down to the Tinkerer, who potentially has worked for Stark Industries before, has a bit of a vendetta against Tony Stark, so you'll see the link coming through that. He's probably going to help the Vulture get his tech up and running as well for his suit. But yeah, so big things I'm hoping for Spider-Man and potentially what can come out of it. So we'll see what happens. One of the other trailers I got really excited about this week was War for the Planet of the Apes. Wow, that looks incredible. I'm a huge fan of the franchise. Love the first two movies of this rebooted franchise. And the motion capture work is just stunning. Visually, this stunning looks, and it just looks incredible. It looks like on a much bigger scale, even from the last one. It's going to be a lot more humans, a lot more war, a lot more fighting, guns. And it's got Woody Harrelson, and he's looking like a badass in this film. So it's very much, in the trailer, it's like, if we lose, then this is the planet that's going to be taken over by the apes. So this is potentially, what I'm hearing is potentially it's like the third and final in this trilogy, or whether they can continue with the story or not. It's going to be interesting to see, but if it's anything like the first two, I'm going to be so excited to see this movie. And I think Andy Serkis, he really deserved an Oscar before now, particularly when that first Planet of the Apes, when that first came out, the motion capture that he did. He's brought so much to the industry with his talents regarding that. I really hope he gets something at the end of this kind of franchise, because he's been phenomenal. The other trailer we saw this week was Transformers: The Last Night. It's hard to get excited for Transformers. The movies have just been really disappointing. Since the first one, to be honest. I love the first one. I remember watching it when I worked at the cinema. We watched it in a staff preview a couple of nights before it came out. We're all big fans in there watching it, and there was lots of shouting and cheering at the screen. I'm seeing those characters on the big screen for the first time in that way. The second, which I believe Revenge of the Fallen, was just a shocking movie. Megatron being shown to be like a real bitch to the Fallen. He doesn't answer to anyone. Just the tone of the movie, the writing. I think that came about during the writer's strike, which didn't help the movie, which a lot of it hasn't. But they just haven't been great. Dark Side of the Moon wasn't too bad. The last one, trying to bring the Dinobots in. Mark Wahlberg, for me, couldn't say he's a farmer, but he knows tech and he's an inventor, and just things about this movie just didn't quite fit. Now the trailer, it's pretty much what you come to expect with Transformers. Now it opens very much with during sort of like the medieval period, sword battles. You saw like the three-headed dragon transformer during World War II. So again, they're reiterating the fact that Transformers have been around for generations, and I didn't mind how it was implied in the first movie. They've been hiding in plain sight, but the fact that there were dragons before and previous, maybe that's to try and show the link of why the Dinobots were created, why they took those forms. But it's all just very, very strange, and it's just an excuse for Michael Bay to show more eras. He likes his war films since he's done Pearl Harbor and stuff like that, but it's such a strange take on the movie. Mark Wahlberg is back in it. He's going to be doing his thing. No big surprises there. But the thing that I took mostly from the trailer is for Unicron. So obviously they bring Unicron to the big screen. They are rehashing a little bit of the original cartoon Transformers movie, which I love. Where you see Optimus Prime spinning in space. It's very reminiscent of Megatron dying after the fight with Prime, floating around in space, and Unicron comes and basically changes him to Galvatron. And I think that is going to be something like this. Now, obviously, Galvatron was in the last one. So Megatron is supposed to be in this one. Whether he reverts back to the more traditional Megatron, we'll see. Or whether it will be just Galvatron. But Prime, I think, is going to be found by Unicron. He's going to repair him, send him back to Earth to help him take over that planet. So that is where I think in the trailer you see him fighting Bumblebee. He's like, forgive me. He's not under his own control. I think that's very much down to Unicron. Whether we hear Unicron speak is going to be another thing as well. But also Hot Rod's supposed to be in this. So, we're expecting to see the Matrix of Leadership again. Maybe Rodimus Prime. So, some factors where, I'm going to see this movie because I do love Transformers, and it's just one of those big budget blockbusters I'll end up watching. But I don't go in with much expectation. But we'll see what they do with these characters. See if they do kill off Bumblebee. I doubt it, because he just, there's too many toys. Kids would freak if Bumblebee died. He's one of the most loved characters of the kids for these new series films. So we'll wait to see what happens with that. Next up, we saw Baywatch. So the Baywatch trailer landed. For me, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can do no wrong. I just love him in everything he does. The trailer did give me some laughs. I like the fact they're doing it more of a sort of like a satire comedy. A little bit like they did with 21 and 22 Jump Street. It's not a taking Baywatch very seriously as a TV show. It's what at the time was one of the most popular TV shows ever. Still syndicated around the world, plenty. But yeah, I think there's could be some real on-screen chemistry there. It's going to be a bit of a laugh. And yeah, the trailer made me chuckle. So we'll see what that can bring. Whether Dwayne's going to have to dismantle some, nuclear bombs or something, solve a murder, and save the president at the same time whilst holding his breath underwater. So we'll see. And next up for the trailers we had dropped this week was The Wall. Now, this went a little bit unnoticed. I didn't see it for a couple of days, but because of some of the bigger trailers that came out with Spider-Man. But this is directed by Doug Liman, who is famous for The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith fame, and Edge of Tomorrow, highly underrated movie. You haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise? Check that film out. It's fantastic. Now, this is starring Aaron Taylor-Johnson and John Cena, two guys who look like they are obviously in the army in the US. Looks like their roles are snipers, and one of Cena gets caught out. He gets shot and he's injured laying down. Aaron Taylor-Johnson gets pinned behind a wall. It's very much a standoff movie from that point. It doesn't look like he's going to move much location. Very much in the vein of Phone Booth or something like Buried. It's very centralized. It's going to be about him talking to the other guy on the end of the radio who's a sniper trying to take them out. Looks like it's going to be really intense and really gritty. The fact that they've both been shot, they're bleeding out, they need to survive. What are they going to do to survive? Really like the trailer. Looked really interesting, and so it was, definitely a film that I'd like to see some more of. I don't know if I want to watch any further trailers from that, because I think potentially they could end up ruining it with the wrong kind of trailer, giving too much away of the other shooter and stuff like that. So I really want to go into this movie now, seeing just what I've seen so far. So if you haven't seen it, again, look in the links below and check out the trailer for The Wall. Also, finally, the trailer job this week was 50 Shades Darker. I'll be honest, I haven't watched the trailer. I have no interest in the film, didn't see the first film, but depending on my audience, I thought it might be worth a shout. So the trailer is out there, 50 Shades Darker. Check it out if that is your thing. Okay, that is all the movie news and trailer news I have for this week. The show now, hopefully, I'm going to be dropping maybe 2 episodes a week, so we're going to see how it goes, so I can bring you the news a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. What's coming up next week? Well, there's only really one thing happening in the next 7 days, which I'm interested around, which is Star Wars Rogue One. Now, I've just been looking online. The premiere was today, and some people are coming out of it now. So like John Campier, John Schnepp, they've been saying their first thoughts about the movie, and all they're saying is awesome. I've seen some reviews on Twitter saying obviously they can't go into too much detail at this point, probably because of sort of like embargoes or anything like that, but they don't want to give too many spoilers away. But they say that the third act is very action heavy and some of the best action you've seen in a Star Wars film. So some of those reviews are coming out, really got me hyped. I'm seeing it on Wednesday night this week at midnight at the stream with Westfall with my mates. So once I've watched that movie, I will come and drop a review. I'll try and do 2 reviews if possible. I'll try and do a spoiler and a non-spoiler. And then I'll be seeing it on Saturday at the IMAX as well, because let's face it, this film has to be seen in IMAX as well. And that's it for all the movie news and trailer reviews of this week. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button below, and also please make sure that you like the page. YouTube have this new formula for tracking videos and watches and stuff like that, and the likes are really important now. So not that I'm one to beg, but please give me the likes, please. Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with me about the show, you'll find me on Twitter at KenTalksFilm. You'll find me on Facebook at Facebook.com/KenTalksFilm. You'll be able to find me on Instagram at KenTalksFilm as well. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching, and look out for the next episode next week, and also Star Wars trailer review. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.